Mark, what did Rahm have to say?
Well, John, it's budget day here in Chicago. Rahm presided over a long council session, got his budget passed with just 4 dissenting votes. He's up for re-election in February, so it was a big moment for him. Afterwards, he had a press conference. Most of the questions were about the budget, but the fact is, people think of this as a Washington fight, but this immigration thing is going to affect every state and every city. And so Rahm was asked by one reporter about what he thought of what the president was doing, how it would impact Chicago.
I'm proud that the President of the United States is standing up and using the power of the executive pen, so to say, and executive action to change the law, to allow the immigrants that have been sitting in the shadows to become citizens. And after 16 years of debating this through 2 administrations, he's taking the actions necessary.
So after the press conference, I sat down with Rahm. We had a very short chat about this immigration decision. And he's very bullish. You know, he's a good person to talk about this. Obviously, a former member of Congress, a guy who understands confrontational politics from working with Bill Clinton. And again, as a mayor of a city that's going to have to deal with it. And I asked him sort of about the political terrain now going forward with the president's announcement.
What's the best way for the White House now that the president's decided to make this announcement to actually push it through most effectively?
You know, 5 million are people eligible. But you got to convince people that have been spending their lives in the shadows to come out and apply. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned, Mark, from the Dreamers, that we didn't hit all the numbers we could have, and there's a lot more work to do. I've been working with Congressman Gutierrez, all the universities, social service agencies, to make sure that the city of Chicago is set up so when there's new rules of the road going forward, we are most prepared to help our residents become citizens of the United States.
You know congressional politics pretty well. What kind of position does this put Republicans in on Capitol Hill who are unhappy with what the president's doing?
Well, it's going to be different gradations, but I like to remind everybody, under George Bush and under Barack Obama, the United States House of Representatives and the Senate have had 16 years. Twice a bill has passed the Senate to not happen in the House. The president, I think, is appropriate. He's worked on this for years. He's waited. He's worked through. He's cajoled. I don't think the 5 million people can wait much longer, and so therefore he'll sign the executive order. And again, any legislation can supersede this.
But do Republicans have any good political options here?
Well, I think they're going to complain. I think they're going to end up with a lawsuit and take reality for what it is.
And where's the coalition that supported like the Senate legislation? Why don't we see business leaders, religious leaders, et cetera, out there supporting the president right now?
Because I think they've come to the conclusion this is the most pragmatic thing to do immigration.
But why aren't they out there supporting the president?
That's something you've got to ask the White House. Actually, that's a good question, and I don't know why.
So Rahm is mystified as we are about where's the business roundtable, where's the Chamber of Commerce. But the fact is, he clearly thinks Republicans, as we said at the top of the show, do not have an obvious play here except perhaps to sue. And I'll say the other thing is, we talked about it at the beginning of that interview. It is going to be complicated for these Republican governors, for instance, after the executive order. If people in their states start to come forward, what do? No Affordable Care Act care for them. But there's still going to be a lot of interaction with state government for new people who are coming out of the shadows.
Yeah, you know, it's striking to always to hear Rahm talk about immigration, because you'll remember well, Mark, that back in the early part of the Obama administration when he was chief of staff and there were those who were pushing President Obama pretty hard internally to do immigration reform, he pushed pretty hard back and said, we can't do this in 2010. We don't want to do it. The politics of it are wrong. It's going to hurt a lot of Democrats. Of course, a lot of Democrats got hurt anyway. He now sounds like he would be advising the president to do exactly what the president is doing if he were the White House chief of staff now.
It sounded 100% like that. And again, it was palpable how much he thought Republicans really weren't in a good position. The Republicans didn't have a good play. And look, he's in a city that's a sanctuary city, and it's still very good reminder in talking to a mayor, happens to be a former White House chief of staff and a former member of Congress. This is going to have implications in every state for every governor and every mayor about how to deal with it. And just like with the Affordable Care Act, Republicans can huff and puff, but the president has some momentum. Now, if the Republicans shut down the government or say that the president's basically forcing them to defund the thing, if there's confrontation, Rahm doesn't shy away from confrontation, but that could, if the Republicans follow through, Ted Cruz is talking about shutting down every nomination except national security. It could be a miscalculation, but it's clear from Rahm and other Democrats we've talked to today, they like the decisiveness of it, and that's a big advantage going 180 miles per hour.
You know, Rahm has been very good at various times at being bipartisan, as you know, often wrongly portrayed as a pure partisan, but he also really knows how to jam the other party when he thinks it's in his interest, and I think you can see him with a little bit of the instinct for the jugular coming out here. I have one quick question for you. It's a trick question. How many middle fingers did Rahm extend to you while you were in your meeting with him?
Several.
Several.